African Americans are the second largest minority population in the United States. African Americans are largely the descendants of Africans who were brought forcibly to this country as slaves between 1619 and 1860. The Civil War ended slavery in 1865, and particularly in the states of South Carolina, and the Reconstruction Act allowed blacks the right to vote and to participate in state government. However, most African Americans in the South were denied their civil rights and were segregated. Thus, African Americans lived in poverty and encountered many hardships. After the Civil War, more African Americans migrated from southern rural areas to northern urban areas. Black Americans only compose of 13.2% of this country's population. There are approximately 6,931,071 people in Arizona. Of the 6 million people, there are 281,576 African Americans. The unemployment rate for blacks was 12%, compared to 5.8% for whites last February. The median family income of all races in the state of Arizona is $62,527, while the median income of African American families is $40,945, and of African American female-headed families, $25,594.
There are a number of conditions that African Americans are predisposed to. At the top of the list are asthma, diabetes, hypertension, obesity, and stroke. I'm going to discuss the prevalence, cause, and risk factors associated with these conditions that continue to plague the African American community despite advances in healthcare. Let's begin with asthma. African Americans are 3 times more likely to die of asthma than Caucasians. They also have more asthma than any other racial or ethnic group in the United States of America. This is due to genetics, tobacco use, poor air quality, obesity, socioeconomic status, and health maintenance behaviors. With regards to environment, I found it interesting that 71% of African Americans versus 58% of white Americans live in communities that violate air pollution. Next on the list is diabetes. This disease is 60% more common in African Americans than Caucasians. Blacks are up to 2.5 times more likely to suffer a limb amputation and up to 5.5 times more likely to suffer kidney disease than any other people with diabetes. This is due to genes, environment, socioeconomic status, racism, and access to care. Americans develop high blood pressure earlier in life and with increased blood pressure levels than Caucasians. Nearly 42% of black men and more than 45% of black women aged 20 and older have hypertension. The prevalence of high blood pressure in blacks is among the highest in the world. African Americans are nearly 1.5 times more likely to be overweight compared to Caucasians. Obesity rates also tend to be higher amongst African American children compared to Caucasians. This is due to low income, access to quality education, access to nutritious foods and produce, and a lack of exercise. Overall, African Americans suffer more strokes than any other group of people. African Americans have twice the mortality rate of stroke than Caucasians. This is due to the presence of hypertension and obesity. These are the 2 biggest risk factors for stroke.
Historically, African American rights revolved around food. The society is based on religious ceremonies, feasting, cooking, and raising food. Economically disadvantaged families might have no other choice but to eat what is available at low cost. Fresh fruits and vegetables, lean meat, and seafood are not as readily available at low cost. The popular term for African American cooking is soul food. Many of these foods are rich in nutrients as found in collard greens and other leafy green and yellow vegetables, legumes, beans, rice, and potatoes. The African Heritage Diet, as shown on the African Heritage Diet Pyramid, is based on whole, fresh plant foods like colorful fruits and vegetables, especially leafy greens, tubers like yams and sweet potatoes, beans of all kinds, nuts and peanuts, rice, flatbreads, and other grain foods, especially whole grains, healthy oils, homemade sauces and marinades of herbs and spices, fish, eggs, poultry, and yogurt, and minimal consumption of meats and sweets. Research shows that many foods celebrated and enjoyed today have their roots in the American slave's diet. The African heritage diet and the old ways of eating connect healthy eating and enjoyment in a way that is powerfully flavorful, simple, and affordable, and that naturally meets the dietary guidelines that health professionals promote today. It is filled with high nutrient foods and is naturally low in processed sugar, unhealthy types of fats, and sodium.
Now let's begin by looking at traditional African American methods of health restoration. Bluestone, otherwise known as copper sulfate, is used as medicine for open wounds. The stone is crushed into a fine powder and sprinkled on the affected area. It prevents inflammation and is used to treat poison ivy. To treat boils, African Americans would crack a raw egg and peel the white skin off the inside of the shell and then place it on the boil. To treat a crick in the neck, 2 pieces of silverware were crossed over the painful area in the form of an X. For a sprained ankle, a piece of clay was wrapped in a dark leaf and then placed on the ankle. One of the treatments for cuts and wounds was to pour sour or spoiled milk onto a piece of stale bread. From there, you would wrap the bread in a cloth and place it on the wound. Herbal remedies were highly popular amongst the culture. Herbs like goldenrod root were turned into tea to reduce pain and fevers. Sugar and turpentine are mixed together and taken by mouth to get rid of worms. At one time, the beliefs and practices of voodoo were closely related to the beliefs about health and illness. Gris-gris, the symbols of voodoo, were used to prevent illness or to give illness to others. Good gris-gris are powders and oils that are highly and pleasantly scented. There is love powder, which is colored and scented with perfume. Blue powder indicates protection. Yellow powder indicates wealth and success. Bad gris-gris are oils and powders that have a vile odor. An example of bad gris-gris is anger powder. It's composed of soil, gunpowder, and black pepper. Flying devil oil is olive oil that has red coloring and cayenne pepper added to it. Flying devil oil is used in protection rituals. Black cat oil is derived from machine oil. This is used to reverse bad luck. Oral contraceptives are viewed with mixed emotions amongst the African American community. People who believe in birth control prefer selecting the time when they will have children, how many children they will have, and when they will stop having children. To many African Americans, birth control is considered a form of black genocide and a way of limiting the growth of the community. Overall, the most common method of treating illness is prayer.
Every person perceives pain differently. Pain tolerances vary throughout cultures and amongst individuals. There are biological and sociocultural factors that influence a person's pain tolerance. African Americans have lower functioning pain regulatory mechanisms. Discrimination or fear of discrimination can also affect how willing someone may be to get treatment for their pain. There is a higher prevalence of this amongst African Americans, meaning their pain may be left untreated or not treated properly. Some healthcare workers may also be biased and not believe the patient about their pain based on stereotypes or racism. They may assume the patient's pain is less than what they say it is because of this profiling. It is important for these African American patients to get proper treatment for their pain and to be honest about the pain that they are feeling. It is also very important for all healthcare workers to believe what every patient says they are feeling when they say that they are in pain. It is vital to not let biases and stereotypes get in the way of proper patient care, no matter what cultural differences there may be.
Just like any other culture, African Americans do not like facing death and facing the idea of it. They like to consider death as an enemy of life. So in that case, they see life as a gift that should be preserved at all costs. The African American culture sometimes varies, but the culture shares one common theme with other cultures, and that is that they believe in spirituality. In the African American culture, they believe that life is cyclical and not linear. So in more simpler terms, this means that this culture believes in reincarnation, and anyone who dies is recreated by a new birth. This culture believes that death is correlated to spirituality, and they tend to avoid relating it to medical or physical reasons. With this being said, they tend to believe in letting things take their natural course. The extended family of this person and many friends are involved in the process. When it comes to death, they normally like to get the ones they loved involved by settling any disputes or issues and by making peace with them.